I have wanted a Kel-Tec Sub2000 since I was about 18 years old. See, I had read an article about the Kel-Tec carbine in Shotgun News and fell in love with the simplistic design and the fact that it could share magazines with my, at least at the time, go-to end-of-the-world handgun, the semi-automatic 9mm Glock 17. Now, for years, I put off purchasing one because either life got in the way or I was saving for some other high-end gun or accessory that frankly I probably didn't need, and I eventually just forgot about the gun entirely. This all changed a few years back when I saw Kel-Tec introduced the new second generation variant at SHOT Show 2015. This time, I didn't put off getting one for too long, but I really wanted one that was both the Glock 17 model and in the ever-elusive FDE. This took a little bit longer than normal to track down. Now, I gotta be honest, when I first picked up this little carbine, I was a little apprehensive. Not because of the design or any particular feature or lack thereof, but after lusting after one for more than a decade, I was worried it wouldn't live up to my expectations. So, does it? Well, let's find out by taking a closer look at the Kel-Tec Sub2000 Gen 2 Glock 17 model. The Kel-Tec Sub2000 series of pistol caliber carbines are these simple yet effective little rifles designed around the concept of an ultralight, portable folding trail gun. And since they're designed around this principle, the charging handle and recoil spring are located in the rear of the gun, because this configuration prevents the moving components of Kel-Tec's carbine from being exposed to excessive dirt and debris when the gun is folded. Now, to fold the gun, the hinge trigger guard is rotated forward and slightly up, lowering a massive polymer tab that secures an equally massive housing surrounding the gun's chamber. Now, interestingly, the front of the gun only contains the handguard, the front sight, the barrel, and the chamber. And what about the gas system? Well, there really isn't one other than the barrel itself. This is because the Kel-Tec Sub2000 operates via direct blowback, meaning when a round is detonated inside the chamber, the escaping gases propel both the bullet forward and the spring-loaded bolt rearward. This is the most simplistic method of automatic loading, as it consists of only two major components, the bolt and the recoil spring. Now, arguably one of the Kel-Tec's most alluring features is its ability to use common, affordable pistol magazines. The Sub2000 is available in both 9mm and 40 Smith & Wesson, as well as multiple configurations that accept either Glock, Beretta 92, SIG P226, or Smith & Wesson M&P magazines. The model reviewed is designed to feed from 9mm Glock 17 magazines and is one of the most popular configurations available, likely because of the popularity of 9mm Glock handgun. In fact, it was this feature that initially sold me on the design because my primary handgun is a third generation Glock 17. But this isn't a review of the Sub2000 as a whole, but rather of the newest iteration of the design, the Gen 2. So, before I get into what I do and don't like about it, let's get a rundown of the Generation 2's most noteworthy new features. Starting at the muzzle, we've got my favorite addition to the Kel-Tec. It's finally threaded. Given how little recoil the 9mm generates from a shoulder-fired weapon, the 1/2x28 threaded barrel isn't terribly useful for muzzle brakes or compensators, but it is ideal for mounting sound suppressors, like this Griffin Armament Resistance 9mm provided by Silencer Shop. Direct blowback firearms like the Kel-Tec Sub2000 are great suppressor hosts because, unlike more precisely timed firearms, they aren't nearly as sensitive to the increased back pressure of running a suppressor. Another great addition to the design is the combination Picatinny M-Lock railed handguard. Constructed of high-impact Zytel polymer, the left and right sides of the handguard feature M-Lock slots for mounting any M-Lock interface accessories, while the top and bottom feature a Picatinny rail, the top for mounting optics, the bottom for mounting accessories like lights, lasers, flashlights, or grips of any variety. One aspect of note, if you intend to run an optic of any variety on the Sub2000, it's best to use one with a quick detached mount, because the gun cannot be folded with an optic attached to the top rail. The last notable upgrade to the Gen 2 is the addition of an adjustable stock. To utilize this, the shooter simply depresses a button at the rear of the buttstock, which relieves pressure on a massive pin that secures the stock to the back of the receiver tube. The stock has 3 holes in it, so a shooter needs only to move that pin from one slot to the next to adjust the overall length of pull on the firearm. And while this isn't nearly as quick to adjust as an M4 style stock, it doesn't add any unnecessary weight to the design and is rock solid. Alright, with that out of the way, here are my thoughts on the gun after firing roughly 800 rounds through it in about 2 weeks. as well as hiking with it for about 3 or 4 miles for a grand total of about 2-3 hours of hiking. First, the good stuff. The folding adjustable aperture sights are surprisingly user-friendly, and the gun itself has been nothing but both reliable and accurate. Using the included folding aperture sights, I was able to ring out groups hovering right around 3.5 inches at 50 yards, so roughly 7 MOA. When I installed a SIG Romeo 3 reflex sight, those groups shrunk to around 2.7, 2.8 inches. Neither one of these groups is really match grade, but given the limited effective range of the 9mm cartridge, these groups are well within acceptable parameters. Next, I wanted to test magazine compatibility, so I ran 4 different brands of Glock magazines through the Sub2000, and all of them fed and functioned great. This includes Glock OEM magazines, Magpul's GL9, which by the way is the magazine included with the gun, the extended 30-round SGM tactical magazines, and even Korean surplus mags. All of these magazines fed and functioned great, and most of them dropped free with no issues, the only exception being the 33-round extended Korean-made magazine. But given that this can be remedied with a Dremel or even some sandpaper in about 10 minutes, it's hardly an issue whatsoever. The Gen 2's trigger is nothing to write home about, but it is a vast improvement over the first generation's trigger, as it feels much lighter and the break is a lot more crisp. Which brings me to my only 2 complaints about the design. The railed handguard is built from Zytel, which is a very, very strong polymer, but every optic mount is built from either aluminum or steel. Because of this, it's easy to accidentally scuff the rail up pretty bad with an improperly fitted QD mount. Plus, some companies' red dot mounts seem to have some lateral play in them when mounted to this rail. But to make sure this wasn't just the design, I tried out some Vortex QD rings, an EOTech EXPS3 QD mount, and the Zeiss Z-Point polymer QD mount, and none of them experienced any movement whatsoever. The only optic that had any issues with it was SIG's Romeo 3, both with the included clamp mount, QD mount, and the screw mount itself. This leads me to believe that it's not the design itself, but the way the SIG interfaces with a rail. The only other issue I have with the gun is the location and operation of the charging handle. I understand the gun isn't designed for high-speed, low-drag operators, but the location of the charging handle makes racking the action awkward at best. Presumably, this would also make clearing malfunctions difficult, but since I didn't encounter any during testing, I can't really say. Also, I would prefer if the charging handle didn't reciprocate with the action itself, but given how it directly interfaces with the bolt, I don't think this is really possible without a complete redesign. Now, neither of these drawbacks are really deal breakers, just something to consider. And in my opinion, the Kel-Tec's positive features grossly outweigh the negatives. Ultimately, the Sub2000 is just a basic direct blowback pistol caliber carbine with one extraordinary feature that single-handedly elevates it above competing designs. But if you take that and add to the fact that it shares magazines with one of the most prolific handguns on the planet, and the fact that it retails for under $600, you've got one hell of a bargain. Given the gun does have some warts, but the core design of the Sub2000 is absolutely solid. And more importantly, it excels as the combination bug-out gun or trail-side companion it was designed to be. It does this by being a lightweight, soft-shooting, totally reliable little carbine. Now, it might not be mil-spec or the kind of gun that door-kicking, beard-wearing operators would take into battle, but it's still a dependable straight shooter that fulfills the role it was designed for, and the kind of gun that an everyman could afford to run on a regular basis without breaking the bank. Thanks guys. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more Burst Review.